What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Thunder podcast. We now officially know who our Oklahoma City Thunder will be playing in the second round. That is the Denver Nuggets after they defeated the Clippers in game 7. So today we're going to go over kind of the overview of the series, look at some of the stats, some of the key players, stuff like that, some key storylines. We're just going to get into it and really look at the series coming up. As Thunder fans, obviously, one of the big things we're going to look at is Westbrook being on the other side, something we're not exactly the most fond of, but we'll kind of get into that. So let's go ahead and start with the series overview. We'll start with obviously 1 seed OKC taking on 4 seed Denver here. We're getting ready for that first game. What do you guys think?
We're gonna have a little we're gonna have a little 7-man rotation on the Nuggets side. They don't have the deepest rotation. They got good players up top, but it's not the deepest. While the Thunder will probably be rotating through 9, maybe 8 guys. So the big thing is that all our players are clicking because that depth could hurt the Nuggets, and if this series goes to 6 or 7 games, especially since they just came off a 7-game series, winning in 4 against the 5 seed Clippers.
Yeah, and playing pretty heavy minutes. The other thing, mentioning like our depth where we have the 8-man, it's really a 10-man rotation that we can substitute the last 2 guys or 3 guys with another set of 3 guys. And that really throws a monkey wrench in, game planning for a team like us because, it's like, Kenrich hasn't played in 3 games and then boom, you just throw him in. He's a Swiss Army knife. Like, how do you even game plan for that? Or like throwing in AJ, he's probably going to get pretty decent minutes, but maybe Joe gets expanded minutes after the first game or something. And like those types of adjustments from a team like ours that's what makes us really even more dangerous. They're coming off, a low amount of time to even prep. And the coach is not even just a first year coach. He's only coached a handful of games here. Yeah. And previous to this, he didn't have any real big coaching history or anything like that. He wasn't coaching out of college. So yeah, I don't know, how they'll do in terms of that. Like Jokic will probably be like the player coach for most of the series and leaning on the championship core, which is still dangerous. I still feel like this is still a dangerous series. Like we cannot be losing our home games in this one. The first 2 games we have to lock up and send a message, and then from there we can kind of figure out what we want to do. It looks like our playoff history, we've led this series in the playoffs 12-9 wins, so pretty solid for us. But in the regular season we were tied 2-2, so I mean
yeah, for sure. There was a post-game interview after the game where Coach David Adelman said he started talking about looking ahead at OKC, and like you mentioned, he hasn't been coaching a long time, and he said something along the lines of how many games they won, and one of his buddies reminded him that they got 4 more than that because they just won in the first round. So hearing a coach talk like that, that's not a lot of confidence exactly, talking about how concerning the matchup is. And I know, like, I'm not expecting him to step up to the mic and be like, yeah, we're going to wipe him in 4. Like, I don't expect him to say that, but he didn't sound overly confident at the same time. We're like, we heard Russ. Russ was definitely getting hyped up saying, okay, see, here we come, which that's kind of what you expect. You have passion, you have fire under you, but I don't know. I do think the lack of a coach, and that's not against David, but the thing is, he's not a head coach. He's been put into a pretty tough situation where he has to coach his team into the playoffs, and he's kind of being underlooked as well because they're all just looking to Jokic to be the coach. So nothing against him.
Well, on the flip side, the Clippers got beat in the Game 7, and the words that come out of Tyronn Lue's mouth in the post-game interview is, I haven't thought about the offseason, to be honest. I thought about OKC. That is kind of wild to say after a Game 7 that's what's on his mind is the Thunder and not his job being on the line.
And maybe we should have been focusing on Game 7 a little more instead of the next game. You don't just assume you're going to win Game 7, and they got wiped because of it. But so I do think that this coaching situation is going to end up making a pretty big difference. I mean, I think we live in an age where I think people underestimate how important a coach is to a team. Like, people act like a player can just go out and run the team by himself. That's not true. I will say Jokic is probably one of those guys that is the closest to working as a coach. Still, though, you need a coach. Like, that's just how it is. Jokic doesn't control every substitution. He doesn't control every single play. A coach is important. And I haven't seen anything from him that's really blown my mind, like blown me away. I think they should have handled the series in much more than 7. Clippers are good. Don't get me wrong, but this Nuggets team, like Xavier was just saying, they're good. They're dangerous. Like, this is a good team. They should not have gone to 7 with this Clippers team, in my opinion. So looking forward, it'll be interesting to see how they handle the coaching situation compared to us with Mark. You know, we've had our issues with Mark, but at the end of the day, he's probably the best coach in the league in our opinion. But, you know, he's a top coach in the league. So big coaching battle.
Denver's kind of similar to OKC in the fact that they have fans that just kind of get behind the team's back. They have fans that support them. So they should have been able to win those home games pretty handedly against the Clippers. But also, I want to say, when are you going to get another playoffs where you play back-to-back interim coaches? Back-to-back or interim coach in the first round and then turn around a week later and you're playing another interim coach in the next round. That's crazy to think about.
That is crazy. I wonder if that's like actually happened ever before. I mean, that's so like that's just crazy. But
I don't think it has, because this is the first time 2 coaches got fired this late into the season. I think the last time it happened was like the 1970s or something crazy. So it's like been forever.
Yeah,
so
the odds of those 2 that did happen then being playing in back-to-back rounds is pretty crazy. But
yeah,
I kind of wanted to get into, like, let's actually look at the matchup here, comparing ourselves to this team. As Xavier mentioned, we did go 500 against them, 2-2 over the season. One of those games, Russ had like the best game of his season, dropping a 30 bomb just out of nowhere, which very mixed feelings watching that game. But going forward, like, what do you guys think are going to be some of the key things in the series for us as Oklahoma City Thunder fans?
Well, of course, always the big thing against them is when Jokic is off the floor, you have to win in those minutes. They're one of the worst teams offensively when he's off the floor, efficiency-wise. So just winning those minutes will be huge. And with our depth, that shouldn't be a problem, and we should definitely capitalize on those minutes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You talk about, especially with, you know, the whole Jokic. When he's off, they're just terrible, and that's kind of been proven time in and time out. But
he just played a 7-game series. There's no way he can be on the court for 48 minutes. And if he is, more credit to him if he is.
Exactly. He is averaging, I believe it's his second most minutes per game in a playoff so far. He's at around 40, 41. So that is pretty crazy that he's playing that much, especially with, you know, we've seen. You can, when you're watching the Nuggets play, you can see by the fourth quarter he is dogging. Like, he is tired. He's not moving, and that's something that we need to attack. I mean, a lot of people said, and this is true of the Nuggets, when you play the Nuggets, you can't stop Jokic. Focus on everybody else. On one hand, I get that. Like, yeah, it is important to focus on, you know, Jokic is going to do his thing, but at the same time, there's ways to slow him down. We saw in the regular season, the Lakers held him pretty well when they played him. Jokic is not unstoppable. You know, it's the same way, like, as a Thunder fan, I can unbiasedly say that Shai's not unstoppable either. I mean, we just saw the first round, that was not the best games we've seen from him in a while. They played pretty well in terms of focusing hard on him, but, you know, in that case, everybody else was just given free looks at the hoop. But
I think the Nuggets I think the Nuggets know what's coming. I think they know we're going to push the pace and test Jokic's stamina, because I don't know the exact quote, but Murray said after the game he expects a high-paced series or something similar to that. So I think they know what's coming.
That's exactly what they need to be ready for, because that's kind of what I was going to say is with Jokic. I mean, we just got to keep the intensity up, keep the speed up, get the fast breaks going. You know, we're one of the best teams in turning the ball, getting turnovers. Like, keep that momentum, keep that moving, like, push the pace constantly, because if there's one thing that automatically hinders the argument for Jokic as an MVP, it's the fact that he doesn't play defense. He's not a good defender. He's slow. He doesn't have a good reaction time. Like, we should be able to go at him. And we've seen in the past, Chet's done very well against him several times when they've matched up with each other. I mean, we don't know exactly what the lineup might look like. We might see more heart against him, you know, putting that size against each other. But either way, like, I think it'll be interesting to see how on offense we kind of attack him. Like, what players do we send at him, you know? So it's going to come down to, obviously, I mean, Jokic is a big part of it, but also how we go at him instead of just assuming he's going to get a triple-double every game. Like, you cannot play a game like that. Like I just don't. I think that's kind of what the Clippers did. I think the Clippers played a lot of, well, he's going to do really good, so let's guard everybody else. And it's like that's just asking him to change the game and win it for him. So it'll be interesting, in my opinion, to see what we throw at Jokic.
Yeah, I was going to mention Chet as well. I think he's our X factor. The more I look at it, like we know what we're gonna get from J-Dub in this type of series. There's not really that much perimeter defense from their end, but the front court battle is where we win or lose this series. And having Chet as like a top end shot blocker, we're gonna need that in this series. Like obviously we saw what he did in the first series. He led, I believe, all centers in blocks to start off the playoffs, and he needs to carry that over. And his offensive production has changed to where he can take things off the dribble, and that needs to continue in this series as well. I'm just curious with the MPJ and Aaron Gordon matchup against him, if that will be a hindrance for him or if he's going to be able to step up to the plate. Because if he's able to step up to the plate the way he was against the other DPOY candidate, then we can definitely win this series with a lot more ease. But if he's a little bit more hindered, then we're going to need other people to step up. And that's what we've seen in previous series with the Thunder, especially in a second round series last year, where, we were just one or two guys short of going over the hump. And that cannot be the case this time around. And I'm expecting him to have some big games.
If you want to talk X factors, mine's Dort, because Denver has that 1-2 punch offensively with Jokic and Murray. Jamal Murray is known to be a playoff riser, so for Dort to just completely take him out of this series, so we really only have to focus on Jokic, would be huge for us defensively to not have to worry about Murray, because we've seen what he can do. 40-point games in the playoffs. He can score on high efficiency. I'm pretty sure he had a big game against us this year, so
yeah, for sure.
Nice for not be a problem.
Shai is not my X factor, but we need to see the more, like, I don't know. It's not that he didn't have a good series, because, he was still averaging like 28 points on the series. But as Thunder fans, we all know he was not playing the way that he has been all season. And it's okay. You can take, you can't expect a player to play perfect every single game ever. And up until that game, that first game one, he pretty much had played perfect in almost every single game. So I do think I'd like to see at least that little confidence come back. It's not that he doesn't have confidence. He's talked about how he's just going to keep shooting. He's not afraid. Some shots just don't fall. I just want to start seeing those. We kind of talked about earlier, I think it was a few episodes ago, we talked about like, man, Shai could end up averaging like 35 in this playoffs. And it's like, that's still true. But after that first round, it's kind of like, okay, is he going to come out trying to fire quickly and hitting his, getting back into the groove, or is he going to take it a little more slow like he started that first series? Because in the first series, that game one, from the second the game started, it just kind of felt like he was slower. He was not looking to get his shot off. He was looking to let everybody play. And I was like, okay, I like what he's thinking, but like, that's not how we just got the 1 seed. Like, we got the 1 seed because he attacks, he's aggressive, he gets to his spots. And as the series went on, it looked like he started getting there more. So it'll be interesting to see if he kind of goes back to that, patient, docile, kind of laid back style and letting everybody else get their shots in, or if he's just going to come out firing. And that's what I'm looking for. He's got
this reason being he's not my – this is X factor is just – I can't see this as a series where he slacks off. He can't slack off in this series. There's too much on the line with the MVP debate and trying to prove himself as the most valuable player in this league. I mean, I think our 68 win season speaks for itself, but to dominate the Nuggets, especially if we won in 5 games or 4 games, I don't think we sweep the Nuggets. They're too good of a team. I think they pull one off at home. But to win in 5 games and just absolutely make a statement would be so big for, like, from a respect level, to get respect from across the league.
Yeah.
I think that would be huge for him. So I think there'll be a lot of motivation in this series for him.
What I'm looking for from Shai is his first quarter. Like, he needs to come out in the first quarter and establish himself with at least 10 plus points in each first quarter of this whole series. Like, if he's not doing that and we start off to slow starts against this team, they're already a rugged team where we just saw what they did to the Clippers, where there was games where we were like, how do the Nuggets pull this one off? So we don't want that to be the case with us, where it's like they started off early. We just never could get back into the game. And by the time Shai got rocking and rolling, it was a little too late, or we had to rely too much in the clutch. Because if we're talking about clutch experience, just being very objective here, they have the upper hand. They just truly do have the upper hand. So we can't put ourselves in that many scenarios this time around. I mean, even with the Grizzlies, the last 2 games that we won were pretty close games where we didn't want to be in that type of position. And a team that can close the way this team can and the way Jokic can. I mean, he's just a different level closer, man. I've not seen a guy of this much talent maybe since, like, I guess LeBron James brings, memory to like the level of dominance he's had over the past couple of years. So he's been dominating on all sides, and we just can't start out slow with Shai.
Yeah, I guess when starters on the floor, I'm thinking I guess it would have to be Christian Braun guarding him. I have a lot of respect for Christian Braun. I've watched him since his days at Kansas, but I just can't see him guarding Shai one-on-one. So I would have to expect a lot of doubles to be Shai's way when the starters are on the floor, because if it's just Braun guarding him, I don't think Braun can hold him, especially if this series goes long. That's a lot of tough defense to be playing.
Yeah, for sure. And talking about the Nuggets side a little bit, Braun's taken quite the step up offensively. I mean, that series, he was a big factor. He was really big for them. So I do think we need to keep an eye on that, especially. I mean, we're one of the best defensive teams in recent history. So it's like, on one hand, I'm not terribly concerned, but this isn't like the Grizzlies where we don't have to worry about certain players and we can just kind of wave them off and, oh man, okay, they hit a couple shots, whatever. No, they are loaded. They have guys that can score at any point. Aaron Gordon has been becoming a much better offensive player as well, finding that mid-range shot. And every other game, he'll hit a couple threes that are a lot more like impactful than I think a lot of people realize. So this Nuggets team is good. Like, and that's not to diss on the Grizzlies, but I think even the Grizzlies fans kind of knew that like this was not going to be a good series. Like, they had a little bit of hope here and there, but after that first game, it was kind of just like, whatever, roll it out of the way. But this is different. That first series was kind of just like let's get into the swing of playoff basketball. And now this is the first big test. Like, this is
now it's time to get serious.
Yeah, this is a serious matchup. And there's a lot of guys, and this isn't just coming from Thunder fans saying this, but Westbrook is a huge X factor in the series. He really is. The intensity that he brings off the bench can win them the series or lose them the series. I mean, we've seen games where he's just like that game 7 where him alone changes the game and puts a different type of force moving that team forward. Then we've seen games this season from him where by himself he's shot too many shots, turned the balls over too many times, pushed the pace too hard, and he's been a factor in them losing. So it'll be interesting to see how he affects the series, if our defense kind of throws him off, if his quick pace kind of throws us off like it did that earlier game where he had 30, dude, he was getting whatever he wanted against us. It was insane. I was getting flashbacks there.
Yeah, to continue that, if we're not hustling, he's going to be out hustling us. So he just raises the intensity to a whole new level on the floor. He makes everyone hustle, because if you're not hustling, he's going to make you pay for it. That's just how Westbrook plays.
Exactly, and that's where I wouldn't say I'm worried, but that's where that, like, everyone talks about the playoff inexperience. That's where that could kind of show, is we could have these young guys who maybe aren't pushing the pace as hard as someone like Westbrook does, because he's such an underestimated player. Like, you don't expect that much effort, that much hustle out of a guy like him. And that is the nice thing about like NBA players, is I feel like way more NBA players respect Russ than the fans do. So they know what he's capable of, but it still catches you off guard. Like, you can still see in game when players like can't believe how quickly he got there, or how much he's diving on the floor. So if we're not pushing the pace and we don't have every single player from the front of the bench to the back fighting and diving and going after loose balls, Russ alone will win that category for them by himself. And he gets his teammates to do that too.
He's won that category against the Clippers by himself. I mean, he outperformed their bench in numerous games throughout that 7-game series. And that's kind of the scary part where, if the starters win, let's say 1 or 2 games, and then Russ wins 1 or 2 games for them, that's 4 games right there, right? Like, he can ultimately change a series in that way. Like, he doesn't need to win all 4 games for them, but if he can shift 1 or 2 games, which he's completely able to do, and just get 20 points and out hustle us, and our bench has a stinker, like, bro,
That's a loss.
So,
I mean, that's
that's a loss right there. So,
and every once in a while, we've also seen he'll just pull out a game where he hits his threes, and those are the ones where suddenly you're realizing really quickly it's halftime and Russ has 15. How did we let that happen? And he's got 3 threes, and all of a sudden, like, it's a lot more serious, and that's when his confidence goes up. When Russ is hitting his shots, it's concerning. So
he's defending way harder, and the thing is, like, usually in the first or second quarter, let's say he scores like that 15 points. The second half, he may not score again, but he's on tilt. Yes. And that's changed the game for them, where he's getting assists or hockey assists a lot of the times. And he's, getting those metrics that don't stand out on the stat sheet. And that's essentially what he did against the Clippers. And he's going to be looking to repeat and do that with us. And we're going to have to match whoever his matchup is off the bench. Caruso, most likely. I think that'd be a fun matchup with them going back and forth, because they're both pretty intense and they're both kind of the hustle guys for both of our rosters.
Well, I also want to say that I think that series was a huge confidence booster for him. I think it was redeeming, because he said after the game, he was yelling, they chose the wrong guy, because the Clippers traded Westbrook to the Jazz for Chris Dunn. The Jazz dropped Westbrook, and then that's how he ended up on the Nuggets. So I think that series was super personal for him to prove a point to the Clippers. He should have chose me. If I was on the Clippers right now, you guys would be winning playoff series. But nope, now you're going to Cancun, I guess. We'll go with Cancun.
Yeah.
It'll be crazy. Russ is. It sounds like we're just being Thunder fans and hyping up Russ, but it's not. Like, the guy changes the game. It's crazy.
And he'll want to put on a show in his hometown, somewhat of his hometown.
For sure. I have seen some OKC fans saying, like, which side should I be rooting for? And I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Let's be real here for a second. Like, come on, guys. You can hope that Russ has a good series, but at the end of the day, if you're not cheering for OKC, you're not a Thunder fan. You're a Russ fan. Like, you can be both, but at the end of the day, like, come on.
And I do want to address, like, that doesn't mean, at least on my case, like, I love Russ, and all of us do. We're not going to be bringing him down. We'll be cheering for him to have a fun series, but at the end of the day, we want to get through this in 5 or 6 games, get a little bit more rest heading into a Western Conference, series that's even going to be tougher than this one. So,
this franchise has never won a ring, and Denver has. So the way I put it is, Westbrook can get his ovation, but the ovation needs to be louder for our guys.
Yeah, which I think it will be. I mean, we've kind of been seeing the atmosphere that we knew as OKC fans, that we knew Loud City would bring that atmosphere. But I've been seeing a lot of, like, other pages posting, like, talking about how good our atmosphere is, as if we didn't already know this was going to happen. So it's like, it's nice to see the league is actually realizing that, like, our fans are dedicated. They wear all the shirts. They all get, like, we're like one of the few teams. Indiana was doing it too, but we've been really getting into it. And I mean, we knew we would, but I think Russ will get his flowers. But at the end of the day, the OKC fans want OKC to win. Like, that sounds like a stupid statement, like obvious, but unfortunately, it's not obvious for some fans. A lot of people are really debating, and it's like, all right, guys.
Well, something pretty cool they're introducing for this game is they're doing black jerseys, black court, and black shirts, which will be the first time that OKC has done that. Hopefully not a curse. Hopefully the black. hopefully 1-0 in blackout games.
Yeah,
I think we've performed pretty well. Not maybe in a since it's the first time in a blackout series, or game, but in that city edition jerseys, we always perform pretty well in those from at least the regular season perspective. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, mentioning Shai,
those are actually our jersey wise. We have our worst winning percentage in those jerseys.
Still a good percentage though.
Yeah, it still is. Yeah, just because we had such a good season.
Oh well. Yeah, but I was going to mention Shai is releasing his new colorway in the Shai ones, so I'm super excited about that. I guess it's going to be a blackout theme if I had to predict anything, but I'm kind of excited.
All black colorway.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what he has, and I think he needed a new shoe change because he he did not perform well in that gray colorway.
People were saying those shoes were cursed.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, for real. So he does play differently in specific colors and shoes. Like it's conspiracy theory, whatever, but it is something about Shai where if you guys remember maybe a year ago, I think the red shoes that he pulled out, the All-Star ones, he like performed so horribly that they badgered him on Twitter, I think to the point where it even got to him where he changed the shoes out. So I'm sure he heard about the gray colorway a little bit. Not that he thinks about it now.
That's a real thing with like superstitions. Players will literally stop wearing a shoe just because they perform bad in it. It's a real thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just basketball is such a mental game that like if you get it in your head that it is a superstition with the shoes, it literally will help to change the shoes because then your mind's like, all right, it's out of the way, and it's so dumb, but like it's legit. Like that literally it's not that it's like a curse, it's just such a mental game. Like it's so crazy. But I also want to talk about like obviously the big storyline of the series is the battle of the MVPs. It's Jokic going against Shai. In terms of how each player will impact the series, I think it's going to be interesting to see because they're going to impact it in very different ways. Jokic is like, I mean, he's the captain, he's the heart, he's the one. Well, not Russ is the heart of that team, but he's the driving force. He's the one that runs everything. He's going to be affecting every asset of the game. Meanwhile, like we were talking about, we need Shai to be that dominant scorer, the two-way aggressive defender on the other end. I think it's going to be interesting to see who overall impacts the series more. I don't think that means, I mean, obviously we know the MVP has nothing to do with this, but it's also, it's the narrative. It's going to get pushed for sure. So in terms of the MVP argument, or maybe not even the argument about MVP, just kind of the impact, what do you guys think it's going to look like for each player for their team?
Well, this is going to be a two-sided test for Shai because he's going to have to bring it offensively, obviously, if we want to win this series. But the way the starters fall, he's probably going to be guarding Brown. I would assume it's not guarding Murray, so he's probably going to be guarding Brown because I would assume Dub guards MPJ, probably Chet on Aaron Gordon. So defense isn't something he can slack off of in this series because Brown's not a bad player. That's someone you got to respect defensively. So it'll be a good defensive test for him.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Safi,
the thing that I wanted to point out, I mean, I guess outside of just how they'll play in the series, I want to just point out the game schedule. So games 1 through 4, we're not going to get the MVP announced because it's already kind of been leaked this next week. They're going to have a couple other awards like Executive of the Year and things like that. So the earliest that we'll hear about the MVP release is Game 5. So that'll be like maybe May 13th or 14th or something like that, depending on how much rest they get. So kind of excited for that. As far as like Shai in this type of MVP battle, I think a minimum points per game is 30, but that's a minimum from his expectation. I think if he's closer to 32, I'd be more happy about that. Like he should have closer to how he played against the Mavericks, and that's probably what he's going to do in this series as an expectation. And then from Jokic's end, he kind of had a subpar series when it comes to his typical stat lines.
On his standards.
From his standards, like he was still doing like crazy stuff, but from an efficiency standpoint, I think Jokic will be a little bit more efficient against us. We have Hartenstein, but I think he's going to put Hartenstein in a lot of tough situations where he'll be in a lot of foul trouble. And I think since we have like an 8-man rotation, I think Jay will be the guy that will be getting a little bit extra minutes in the rotation due to that. So just to fend off against that foul trouble. The one adjustment that I want to see in this series, and I don't know if we'll honestly see it, is Chet Holmgren switching over to Jokic and then having Hartenstein on Gordon, because Gordon's stepping out to shoot threes, but I don't know how much I trust that. Like I'd rather leave him out there and have our best defensive player on Jokic. I know we won't see that much because we want to, protect Chet in the way. So that's why we're running this 2-man lineup. But hopefully as the series goes on, that's an adjustment that happens.
There's pros and cons to both because you also don't want Chet to get in foul trouble because that's a player you want deep into the game in the third and fourth quarters. So
yeah, Chet gets called for a lot of fouls typically too. So
yes, he does for sure. Well, I mean, I think if there's one thing we know for sure, this should be a good series. At least, I mean, at the very minimum, it's going to be entertaining. Two very good teams, two of the best players in the league, two deep defensive teams. This should be a really fun series. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys have any of your own thoughts on the series, please let us know in the comments. We'll be posting on, normal stuff, YouTube, social media, everything like that. So make sure you guys let us know what you think in the comments below. And predictions, yes.
Yeah.
We Thunder in 6.
Thunder in 6. All right. I'm gonna go Thunder in 5. I think we're gonna take business.
Wow. I'm still sticking with my pick of Thunder in 6 in this one. Just the way the series is gonna go. Like, I think we can close them out on their home floor because we're that good. But if we don't, then obviously we have Game 7 to fall back on. I just don't think we'll need that. We've seen Shai close it out on their floor, so
yeah.
I think 6 is good.
For sure. All right. Well, as always, we do hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we will catch you guys next time.
Peace out.
Thunder up.